Welcome back to Voice Bootcamp. Hello there, my name is Faisal Khan, CEO and founder of voicebootcamp.com. In this particular lab, I'm going to show you how to build your first Amazon virtual private cloud network. The topic that are covered in this particular lab is going to be creating your own virtual private network, creating public and private subnet, creating an internet gateway, modifying the routing table to ensure that you have a proper route. I'm going to show you how to create a security group for your web server that allows HTTP traffic. We're going to show you how to create your own MySQL database instance and to only allow MySQL traffic as well from your public subnet. We are going to deploy a web server and a database server, and finally configure an application to connect to your database. So let's get started. It is going to take some time, so be patient, watch this step, repeat this step if you have to, pause it. If you are not sure about it, you can go back. Sometime when you repeat certain tasks, it does sync in a second time or more. Now the steps that we're going to do is going to be first step, task one will be creating your VPC, which is your first step, building your network. We're going to create your own public subnet, your internet gateways, and all the steps. We're going to follow these steps step by steps. So let's get started. Okay, so right now I am in my AWS management console. One of the first things that you need to decide, where do you want to create this? Well, let's start it with North Virginia. Actually, I'm going to go to North Virginia is fine, no problem. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my virtual private network. And to do that, you want to go to services and go to VPC. You'll search for that and you'll bring it down to a virtual private network, which is kind of part of the networking side of it. And you will see that under your system there's already a virtual private network defined, and that is a default one, but we do not want to use that one. So let's click on that and let's take a look at it, and you will see there is a default one already there, but we don't want to touch it. Okay, so let's go and create your own virtual private network. Click create, and then let's call it my VPC. Okay, you can call it US or whatever, like my US VPC. And I'm going to define a block of IP address. Now you get to choose what about the block of IP address that you want. For now, I'm going to choose 10.0.0.0/16. That is one of the subnet that is allowed within the AWS Class B address. So just stick to that. And again, you can choose your other subnet from Class B, but let's just stick to that for now. So I'm going to go ahead and create, and so far I'm done. The next step is to create my public subnet. So on the left hand side you will see called create a subnet, and there's a default one. There are a bunch of them actually. We're going to create our own, and we're going to call this public one, public subnet 1. Okay, and it's going to be associated with the VPC we just created, which is my US VPC, which is right the top one. All right, now you do need to select your availability zone, meaning which data center do you want to create these virtual private network. So we're going to choose US East A as our first. So this public subnet A, and you can call it 1A. And then I can create a second one called 1B, and I choose a different VPC if I want to. Okay, now you need to select a sub CDR block that falls within this range. And what we're going to do, we're going to choose a range 10.0.1.0/24. This falls within that parent CIDR range. Again, I don't want to get into IP addressing in this particular course. If you're not familiar with IP address, please YouTube it. There are tons of videos. There are hundreds of guys explaining IP addressing and whatnot. So let's not worry about too much about that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create. So now I have created a subnet, but this subnet does not, because it's a public, we need to make sure that this subnet can assign IP address to for the public accessibility. So we're going to modify a little bit. So you have created the subnet right there, public subnet 1A, and we're going to tell that subnet that please assign IP address, public IP address to any servers or any resources created within this subnet. So to do that, you go to action and you click on modify auto assign IPS settings. Create and save. Select that and click on save. Again, if you want to follow this lab, you can always pause it, repeat it, pause it again. I mean, this is the whole beauty part about video. You get to see what's happening, you get to hear what's happening, you get to pause it, and then repeat the whole thing all over you want. All right, so I have assigned my subnet to assign an IP address automatically. All right, so next step is to create my second public subnet. Okay, again on the left hand side, I'm going to choose second public subnet, and let's just copy that, and I'm going to call this 1B. Okay, public B, same VPC, but I'm going to choose different AZ, maybe 1B, okay, for redundancy. Block, I will say 10.0.2.0/24 has to be separate, different than the previous one, and we're going to click and create. So now you're going to uncheck this one and you're going to check the B, and we're going to again do the same thing, modify the auto assign. Okay, so now I am done. So basically go to modify auto assign and just simply check mark that option, same thing that you have done. All right, so now I have created both public 1A and public 1B, one on data center A, one on data center B, but they are not enough to communicate with the internet. Okay, a public subnet must have an internet gateway. I mean, it's just like, think about it, in your home you set up a network, but how are you going to connect to internet if you don't have an internet gateway? So next step is to create an internet gateway. All right, so going back to our screen, on the left hand side you'll see called internet gateway. So we're going to click on this, and you're going to create a new one. There's a default one already exists, but guess what, we're not touching that. All right, you can call it my US gateway, I don't know, GW, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to click on create. Right now I have the default gateway, but I need to associate it with the virtual private cloud, which network it is associated with. So that is the next step, attaching the internet gateway to a virtual private cloud. So as you can see, it says detach. So I'm going to check that one, uncheck the default one, and you're going to go to action, go to attach to VPC, and you get to choose the VPC that you want to associate this internet gateway. And by doing that, it is going to automatically map the public IP address, which is coming outside your network, into your private IP address, which is coming to your subnet A and subnet B, or public subnet A and public subnet B. So I'm going to choose the VPC that we have. And remember what I said in one of the chapter, that anything that you do in AWS, there has an equivalent command in CLI, command line base, and you want to find that out, is right here. I always like to copy them and save it somewhere in Notepad. Okay, so that in case if you need to learn how to create an internet gateway from a command line or from shell, for example, Windows shell. Okay, it will give you that. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this. Attach. We are done. It is currently attached. Right now, this will attach the internet gateway to your VPC. Even though you create an internet gateway, attach it to VPC, you still have to tell all the servers or instance that within your public subnet how to get to the internet, which is the routing table. Okay, that's where the routing table comes in. Every subnet will have to have associated routing table and modify it so that it sends traffic to internet properly. So the next task, where we're going to learn how to create a subnet routing table, or not create, how to modify a routing table for internet bound traffic. We're going to add a route so that route tables can take traffic from internal to internet directly, and we're going to associate the two subnets that we have created. Okay, Now a route table contains a set of rules called routes or networks that are basically used to associate with different networks and how to reach that network. Okay, using the internet gateway, we're going to modify a routing table saying that any traffic that is destined for internet should use this internet gateway to go out, and that is what we're going to modify right now. So you're going to go to, on the left hand side there's a little called route table, so go ahead and you'll see that there is a basic route table there. I want to create my own. Let's go create my own route table. Okay, I will call this my US route table. Okay, I'm going to associate that with the VPC that I've created. Okay, create, and now you're back to square one right here. We're going to choose this one that we just created, and what we're going to do, we're going to click on the route tab right there. Okay, you see the route tab right there, and you are going to select two subnets. You're going to first click on edit subnet. You're going to click on subnet association right there, edit the subnet, and we're going to choose the two subnets that we have created. Okay, those are the two we created. Okay, and save. So now that I have my route table, I have created a subnet. Next step is to make sure I have a route. Okay. Okay, so what you're going to do, you're going to click on edit route, and I'm going to add a route to it. Now this is what is important. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say add a route. So 0.0.0.0/0, that is your internet traffic, meaning that anything beyond my network. So right now anything within my network usually starts with 10.0.0. Well, anything outside that 10 should go to 0, this particular network called 0.0. The question is, what do we do with it? Well, any traffic for that should go to internet gateway. So for target, you're going to choose the internet gateway, and you're going to choose the my US gateway. Okay, so save. All right, so now I have a proper routing table configured. Now my network portion is done, my routing portion is done. Next step is to create a security group for my web server so that it allows my web traffic. Now if you look at from the previous configuration, I'm going to go back to service EC2. Now we already created a security group. Right there before. Well, let's play with that one. I mean, it's already there, why not, right? And as you can see, that security group is going to, I'm going to modify this, allow traffic for HTTP to come from anywhere. Okay, so basically I'm allowing HTTP traffic to come in from anywhere in the world. Okay, and I'm going to save that rule. Next step, you're going to launch your server. So you're going to go to launch instance, and let me go and delete this one. I no longer need that. I'm going to terminate this one, and I'm going to create my own. So launch instance, we're going to choose AMI2, Linux AMI2, and we're going to choose this one right there. Now this is where you're going to select your VPC. So one instance, network, we're going to select my US VPC. Subnet, we will select subnet A. Automatically it will assign an IP address. As you can see, auto assign public IP address was enabled because we chose that option. And if you scroll down, if you want to manually assign a private IP address, what I like to do right here, I can do that by assigning, but it has to be from that subnet. So I'm going to say 10. Okay, it has to be from 10.0.1.0. because I chose public, sorry, not this one, public 1A. Okay, and therefore this is coming from 1A. Now I need a web server, right? So I need to make sure that my web server allows me to, I have a proper web server, I have certain things configured, but right now I chose an operating system that doesn't have anything. So using the user data, we have the options to modify the code. So I'm going to copy some code that I have for you, and I'm going to copy it right here to explain that. So I'm going to tell my instance that as you are building this instance, please execute this code only once. Okay, this code will allow you to update the operating system because of this command right here, yum, and then you're going to install the Apache server. It's going to install PHP. It's going to install MySQL database and a PHP MySQL integrations. It's going to check the HTTP config to make sure it's on. It's going to activate the services or start the service. It's going to go into this folder and it's going to create, download a script, unzip the script, and copy those files into those into that folder. So again, don't worry about these commands right now. These are available on the internet. There are hundreds of guys giving you some examples. Feel free to use them. This is one of the examples I found on the website, and I'm going to deploy that. So I'm going to put that right here. Okay, there we go. We are good to go. Next step is click on storage, and we're gonna keep it 8 gig. It's fine, not a big deal. Okay. Now my next favorite thing is tag. We're gonna define a name called web server in US VPC. Okay, I usually just call it a web server. That's fine. Security, this is where you're going to choose the existing security key that I just created in advance. So I'm going to choose that one, and all right, so here's the problem. That security that I created before, it was actually from another VPC. So I'm going to have to create a new one. So I'm going to click on this new one. I'm going to call this my US security group. Okay, and I'm going to enable HTTP. Where am I? Right there, from anywhere, and I want to block the SSH. Don't want full access to that right now. Click on review and launch. Oh yeah, you need security group, you need a description, review the information you want, launch, and it's going to ask you for key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my new key, and I'm going to call this solution architect lab key. Okay, and I'm going to download this key. So I'm actually going to save it because I might use this key in the future. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm done with that. I am ready to launch. My web server is coming back up. It is going to take some time because there's a lot of script that I wrote. I told the installation program to install. So as it is doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to wait for the coming in. We're going to copy. We're going to assign the elastic IP address. Remember, we chose an elastic IP address. That's a good one. So let's go and do that. We are going to go to view instance, and on the left hand side you see the web server is coming up, and if I go to my elastic IP, I will assign this IP right there. I'm going to associate. Actually, let's choose this one now, and I will associate with this web server that is running with the private IP address that I've selected. And as you can see, the IP address is .10, right? Because I selected specifically. If I did not manually assign it, what's going to happen is it's going to auto assign from that range. I don't like anything on auto assign. I like to keep track of what IP address I'm assigning to my devices. All right, click on associates. You are done with that. We just have to wait for this page to come up. Okay, So I'm going to go and pause the video, because after that we're going to show you how to run those an application. Okay, so my page servers are up, so let's go and see. This is the IP address. I'm going to copy that IP address and I'm going to paste it right there, and you see a web page comes up. So basically right now this is where and I can configure my database and whatnot, but at this moment I will not be doing. So at this stage what happening is it's going to use a database, but I don't have a database configured yet. So I'm going to have to go to the next stage where to set up the database. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to create a separate subnet, a protected subnet, where we're going to put our database, because we want to make sure that our database is secure from internet. Nobody needs to access our database directly. So we're going to put the database server on a separate subnet. So for this, we're going to create a private subnet, which will only be accessible by the public subnet, but not from the public internet. All right. So I will go back to my management. I will have to go back to my VPC, not VPC. So what we're going to do on the left hand side, you're going to select the VPC you have created right there. So you're going to click on subnet on the left hand side, and we're going to create a new subnet. We're going to call this private subnet 1A. Okay, it is going to be from US VPC, and again make sure you map to the right one, and it's going to need an IP address 10.0.3.0.24. We're going to click on create. We're going to create a second one. One B 10.0.4.0/24. So I got two subnet created. Now remember that subnet right now, private subnet is not part of my routing table. Okay, so therefore it cannot communicate with the internet or anybody else at this stage. But before we go modify that, next step is to create a security group for my database, the newly created database that I'm going to create. So I'm going to create a security group by going to EC2. I will create a security group right there, and I'm going to call this my DB security security group. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually let's go and create it. I will create this first, and then I will modify it. So as you can see, outbound traffic is automatically allowed, inbound traffic is blocked. Okay, I'm going to create DB security group. Okay, now I have created a security group, but I've not assigned any inbound traffic. So what I'm going to do, remember how we use this security group right here, US security group for my web server? Well, I'm going to copy this ID. Okay, I'm going to copy this ID. Actually, it's this way. And then I will go back to my DB security group that I just created, and I'm going to modify the inbound. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow all database traffic called MySQL, MySQL and Aurora. These are the specific port only from this group. Okay, so only the public subnet is allowed to access this. Okay, nobody else. Okay, so this is kind of like a security. All right, next step is to create the database subnet group. So to do that, you gotta go and create a database. So you gotta go to RDS right there, database RDS, and we're gonna create a database subnet. And so far we've been creating server subnet, net VPC. Now you need to create a database subnet. Okay, so on the left hand side you're going to see subnet group right there, we're going to create a new group. Let's call this my DB subnet group. Description, my DB subnet. The VPC, the US VPC you have, and we're going to we're going to choose the availability zone 1A. So we're going to choose the first one, the .3. I believe that's the one we selected. Yep. And add subnet. We're going to add a second one for B. We're going to choose 4.0, and we have our both primary and secondary subnet. Remember, these are the database subnet, the private subnet that we have created. Okay. So click next. Don't select the 1 and 2 because those are for public. Alright, so now we have created a subnet. Our next step is to create the database. Okay, we're going to create an Amazon database. Now keep in mind, you got to make sure you delete it because otherwise you'll be charged. So we are going to click on database on the left hand side. We're going to click on create database. And we're going to choose standard configuration, MySQL. Okay. Version, keep it same. Production, no problem. Identifier, we'll call it my USDB. Password, leave it as it is. For password, VBC dash password, VBC dash password. Okay, and everything else just keep it burstable class, cheaper one. Okay. Storage, we'll just keep it. It's under storage section. We will uncheck this option because we don't want to scale at this moment. We're going to keep everything the normal. I mean, obviously we're going to delete it anyway, so it's not a big deal. And all these other check right now for we will not do any standby. It will be US VPC. Okay. Just keep everything as same as possible. So in the database existing security group, we're going to click the DB security group, the one that we created. Availability zone 1A. Okay. Again, if you are, I don't think we need that because we're not doing redundancy anyway. Yep, everything else is telling is going to cost you $141 to test this. Let's see if we can reduce it down. Maybe 5 gig should be enough. We choose general purpose 5 gig because yeah, see, it's 12 bucks. So you can take a risk for 12 bucks, right? $120 risk, that's not a risk. So that 12 bucks is going to cost me if I forgot to delete it. Okay. All right. So everything looks good. Let's see what's going. Anything if I miss. Okay. So here under the additional configuration, we're going to say the database name. So you want to define a database, actual database. So you can say MyDB. Parameter we won't change at this moment. Automatic backup, we don't want it. Enhanced monitoring, we don't want it at this stage. Minor upgrade, nope. And enable data deletion protection, absolutely no, because we need to delete it, otherwise it's going to cost me money in the morning or something. All right, so let's see what happened. Create the database. Yes, confirm you want to update your certificate. Yes, and it is now in process. As you can see, it's creating. So it's going to take some time to create the database. So let's go and pause the video and we will come back once it's done. All right, so the database has been created successfully, as you can see. But before we can connect to our database, we do need to get some information in terms of our database string. Now, again, this could be different from my lab to your lab. So make sure you choose the database, and what we're going to need is write this string right there. So copy that to your notepad. Now we're going to make sure we can connect to the database. So what you're going to do, we're going to go back to that browser right there, and we're going to put the information there. We're going to put it into this thing called my endpoint, and I think was what, USDB. I can't remember what I created. Yeah, database USDB. That's the name of the database, and the username VBC dash password. No, VBC username is admin. The was VBC dash password. And let's see what happens. Oh, it is showing maybe it's my DB. Oh, sorry, my apology. It should be the string right here. Okay, so it was due to incorrect database name. Okay, it was a case sensitive, so I found out my database name was my DB, but DB was case sensitive. All right, so this is the information from my database. I have connected to my database. I can remove the contact. I can add a new contact. Faisal Khan, 416-888-9999, and oh, that's not what I wanted. As you can see, I can add the details, add whatever information that I want. All right, so this is a very simple applications. Although it is simple, but it provides you an idea of how to build your own VPC network, how to build your servers, how to connect them. Repeat this video as many times you want until you understand everything. Don't worry about the coding part about it. Don't worry about the database, how the web page works with the database. That's future to come. But what you need to understand is that how those servers are communicating. Now keep in mind, nobody can access my database subnet from internet, because I only allowed because of these security rules, subnet, I have only allowed the public subnet communicating with the private subnet, but private subnet are not part of my routing table, because if you look at the routing table, by the way, let me go ahead and delete my database. I don't want to be charged for it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete. Oh, type delete me. Okay, so that is being deleted. Your web page is not going to work right now. I'm going to go to EC2 and sorry, not EC2, VPC. On the left hand side, the routing table, and you notice that my routing table subnet that are associated are only the 1 and 2, which is my public subnet, not the private subnets. And I have, although I do have a private subnet right there. All right, so hopefully you found the video to be useful. Again, you want to make sure that you delete all your EC2 stuff that doesn't cost you money. I'm going to go ahead and delete my instance. First one, terminate. You also want to make sure you delete your elastic IP, otherwise it's going to cost you money. And you can say release, or you got to do one at a time. Release the IP, release disassociates, and then release. All right, so you got your first lab done. Hopefully you understood. If not, repeat it like I said, as many time you want until you get to the point. Repetition will make you better, and you can only become an expert by repeating the same thing. And at that moment, when you realize that you can actually do this without closing your eyes, that's when you know things are sinking. A lot of people, a lot of my students, what happens is they think that if you do the lab once or twice, suddenly you are a master of it and you can get a job. It doesn't work that way. When you repeat certain things over and over, it becomes second nature to you. And when things become second nature to you, it reflects on how you talk about that. And that's when the interviewer will know whether you know your stuff or not. All right, well, I hopefully found this video to be useful, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, stay cool.